Oh, nice. So I can actually like put some filters on this. Let's do black and white. All right.
All right, so what's the situation?
Let's share.
Share the link now?
Yeah, yeah.
Same link, right?
No, it's not. Well, it won't be the same link.
No.
Just hold on. Let me send it to you. I just like talk to the people. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We are getting everything underway. Sending you the live YouTube link
Yeah, we did have
so that everyone can see us live in the stereo.
Yeah, our setup time is much faster today.
Yeah, because we're not doing as much. Yeah.
Trial and error.
There's a lot less to do when you don't have any Spreaker or whatever that shit.
Good.
Okay, there you go. So just share this to Facebook.
Yeah.
Copy, charge,
Yeah.
Alright, we're just sending out the links to our Facebooks and social media. Yeah, you can do it on Instagram too, actually.
So I'll ask a question. Who would win in a fight between Superman
Jesus.
and Saitama?
We're going anime versus the West
Yeah,
versus the East
so
now.
it's like, Goku versus, what's his face is done already.
It's
Did they,
kinda hard-
did they establish who the winner was there?
Between Goku and Superman. It's Superman.
Go weaker.
Yeah, like Superman beats Goku every time. I mean, facts.
Go weaker and super. He's not as strong as
Does
previously.
the Superman beat Whis?
Can Superman be Whis?
Yes.
Superman has beating an angel before.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a really cool website
Who's
that ranks that actually ranks power levels like on by centric basis. So they use physics based on what people do to like rank them. So if you're like, able to like produce, say you're able to stop bullets, they rank you in a certain position, or if you're like able to punch and destroy a house, they rank on a certain thing. And then if you're like able to do any sort of like, I want to say if you can move past the speed of light, they rank like what supernova basis or like a star basis. It's weird, so it includes like fighting game characters. So like, for example, if you're a character in Guilty Gear that they say he draws his sword so fast that you explode.
Right.
And it makes it like on a physics basis to have the energy to do that, you have to be like on like Superman's level or like a Dragon Ball Z character.
But he's really, I mean.
And I was like, what? I gotta say this because it was like I found it very interesting that they ranked like all these fictional characters.
Yeah.
That don't usually get ranked. So even like from books that
No ranks.
you know, like you're not really get familiar with. So Saitama, I haven't gone past the anime, but seeing that he has no limits, I can probably say like so far he doesn't have a limit.
Yeah.
And he beat Boros pretty easily. And Boros could have probably beat a Dragon Ball character.
Yeah, Boros is pretty like when he punched him to the moon.
Yeah, he could have been a Dragon Ball.
When he punched him to the moon, I was like, yo, did I just see that?
Yeah.
Well, then when Saitama gave the final punch, we saw its effect halfway across the world of the punch.
One serious punch.
You didn't have me that
He parted the clouds.
Yeah.
It's when Lupe Fiasco, right?
Miles away.
Lupe Fiasco like posted on his Twitter like, did Boros just punch Saitama to the moon?
Yeah.
I was like, yo, yeah. Lupe knows what it's about.
Yeah, Lupe always
It's always really funny when you see celebrities talk about anime or
For
something.
sure.
Elon Musk still has me like.
Elon Musk watches anime.
Yeah,
Well, the one that-
huge anime fan.
You know, the one that got me this week actually was when Vince Staples tweeted about Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, yo, he's a big Hero Academia fan, you know. He is a fan. Alright, let's try to shout for this one.
Okay.
Alright, we are getting ready. We are on the way. Wet, black, and white. Because life is black and white. No colors.
What up, Alex?
What up, Alex? What up? So,
Yep.
let's go. We can do a countdown. Are you guys cool with the black and white, or should we change it to like give us more color?
It's different, man. Like,
It's
it's
cool.
different.
Alright.
That doesn't bother me.
For the occasion.
Yeah, it is a solemn occasion. Alright. We're gonna start in 1, 2. I should drink some water.
I just wanna
Stay hydrated, kids.
I wanna tag the what it is. Talk about the wall.
Let me make sure I'm recording. I am.
Yeah, very important.
Why can't I tag the corners? That's weird.
Yeah, I just posted on your site.
Okay.
Welcome, true believers. As I type it out,
What's up, guys?
this is our tribute to the man, the myth, the legend, John Wick. No, Stanley. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, and welcome to the Nerd Report. I am Josue Nelson, the Rubik's Cuban, the Cuban Missile Crisis, Lord Nerd of House Nerd, King of the Andalites, and the First Memes, the man of the hour with the Black Panther power. And yes, we're here today to celebrate the life of Stan Lee. Did that rhyme in a way?
Yes, it did.
That's kind of
well
rhyming.
done.
I like that. I like how we came up with that. But yes, today we're here to talk about Stan Lee, the man behind so many of our childhood memories and even our adult memories right now, and all the things we love in comics. And here with me today, as usual, the mighty Zach.
That is me, aka Sir Luli Loco, aka the Beijing Colombian, aka the captain aboard the hype train for Pokemon.
The hype train for Pokemon, Detective Pikachu. Yeah, we're gonna look at that.
This has
As
been a
well.
wild week in media for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
There's
has
so
been.
much that happened in this 1 week alone.
Definitely has been. And also, to my left, or your right, depending on where you're watching, this is Delvin.
Hi guys, Excelsior. We're glad to be here on this momentous occasion. I pretty much have mixed feelings right about now because the news that hit you that Stanley passed, it was expected, but it's still kind of surreal that it actually happened.
It was something earlier in February when he was having some like
Pneumonia.
complications, yeah. And I kind of felt, at some point I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna hear that Stanley died, and I thought it was gonna be 2016, because 2016 was a year where all your childhood heroes were just going,
Yeah.
and everyone was just going and
Next
going and
year.
going. So it was a bit hard to see, all these people that you grew up with just kind of like pass you by,
Yeah.
and
The Thanos stuff was definitely.
yeah, I felt like Stanley might hit it. He didn't die, but 95 is a good long few years. I didn't feel sad about it, because for someone of his age, a lot of people, a lot of creatives, they create things that they don't get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. And for someone who made their breakthrough at 39, going on 40, he had a good 50 years or so to really enjoy the fruits of his labor and see his characters and creations come to something that was just very amazing.
I think Stanley, and it's so groundbreaking to find out the age he started doing this, not just like in terms of the year, but when he started doing comics were not a respected medium. Like he was going up against authors, journalists, people of a certain profession. So he often remarked that he felt a bit of ashamed to say he was a comic book writer, when a lot of his colleagues used to literally kind of shun him at parties, and when talking about careers, they didn't view what he was doing as an actual profession. And to see now comics evolve into this $1 billion prestigious industry, and he gets to enjoy you know, basically become a legend and start be there from the very, very beginning to see his characters become international IP. I think it's amazing. I think most people don't get that opportunity at all. I mean, you're lucky if you happen to get a movie adaptation or some sort of adaptation of your work. But to see so many characters in an entire world that they help create, get such prominence and influence so many lives and influence so many other creators, I think that's something that you can't really underestimate at all. It definitely was a life well lived, and he's definitely amassed enough points to be in a good place. Right
In a good place, yeah, definitely. Stan Lee is in a good place, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think when he started, he would imagine that he would have reached the magnitude that he did. Because when he started, whatever age he actually started drawing and writing comics, I don't think 16-year-old him, if you told him that you're going to be one of the most renowned comic book creators in the world, I do not think he would have believed it. I don't think he would have believed that his ideas would eventually just bring in millions and millions and millions of dollars. That they go from paper, pretty much from his head to paper to now to all the movies that we know today.
Exactly.
The TV series and everything.
Yeah, and that's something that he said. Well, when he first was working with before Marvel, it was Timely Comics, and Timely Comics was nearing bankruptcy, and he was writing these magazines and stories that his heart wasn't in it. And it was his wife that told him, well, since you're gonna quit, just write the story you want to write. And he wrote the Fantastic Four. And he didn't expect it to be as amazing as it turned out to be. But one of the things about the Fantastic Four is that when DC was publishing stories about Superman's worst day, they were publishing stories that were relating to like the Cold War. And in the form of Galactus, like Galactus is like this metaphor for like the Russian Cold War, like the threat of a nuclear disaster showing up on your doorstep. Those are things that he was writing about in a fantastical nature. And the Fantastic Four was like heroes that weren't necessarily good people. They had flaws. Like if you look at the very first issue, and I challenge everybody to go read Fantastic Four, like really see the inner workings of what became the Marvel Universe. But like the Fantastic Four, like the very first issue after they got their powers, they were fighting with each other. And like Ben Grimm was like almost telling Susan like you're out for this weakling. You should get a real man like me. And like he was fighting Johnny, he was fighting Reed, he was fighting Susan. And then there was just like this come to moment where they had to realize like what am I doing? It's kind of a realization that there's a part of you that's not the best. Towards getting that. Those are the core of all his characters.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you mentioned that. Here's the thing about Stan Lee. I'm not too sure if I am accurate in crediting Stan Lee for the way Marvel is as just their mantra in terms of the characters and the worlds they create. But I often see him make this comment very, very often when it comes to heroes. And he's saying that, yes, you can have all these superpowers, right? But it's perfectly okay if you're not a perfect person, I think he said during the Defenders trailer, he had his Defenders trailer back before the series came out on Netflix, where it's like a montage of like Luke Cage.
Yes, I remember that one.
And he's saying that it's okay for you to have flaws, right? And to have all these problems. But the fact that you have these flaws, but still step forward to do the right thing when you were called upon, to me that makes you an even greater hero than this someone who's flawless and has all these powers.
Exactly, yeah. And that's something that he said like when he admitted that when he created the Avengers, he had the Justice League or the Justice Society of America. He had that in mind. But he figured, these guys are very good. They don't have a lot of problems. But he figured, like, that's not how real people are. And he had this approach to characters, like, always see them as people. And when you see them as people, it becomes easier to connect with them. And then you realize that, everyone has things about themselves, whether we may intend to do good, but the worst of it turns up and as a result of those consequences. And you kind of just have to just get up every day and fight that demon inside you and try to be a better person. But you know what I love most about him is like he's a very down to earth person, and it was on my bucket list to meet him
Yeah,
at some point.
Mine too.
Yeah, because it's like very funny. Like there's a few artists that like wrote this story of when he met Stan Lee. So like he went into it was at a Comic Con, and he saw him coming out of the bathroom, or like they were going into the bathroom when he was coming out at the same time. So they had like this Sting doll on his hand, and he told the guy like, "Hey, could you like sign my doll?" And you know, like the guy's just coming out of the bathroom. He was like, "Sure." So they took a picture with the doll, and then they signed it. And then he said, "Well, thanks, Stan." And he said, "Well, I can't say no to a man with this thing in his hand." It's like, but he's like a very like witty guy, and you know, like even in his 90s, like he was just like spry and very full of energy, and like a big part of his legacy tends to come into question. You know, people question like whether he deserves to get all the credit, whether it was like Steve did all the work or Jack did all the work. But like when you look at the way that Marvel ran, it was very much his show. Like he's the one who was out there selling the stories and who connected with characters. The letters to the editors. We spoke about that before we started. But like if you look at early Spider-Man comics, the letters to the editors were some of the best parts about the stories.
Yeah.
Because he would like legit jab people who wrote in and criticized his books. I know, like I remember somebody was like, there was one guy who called in, who wrote in, and said something about how, all this drama is just a soap opera. It's supposed to be action. Where's the action? And it was in a Spider-Man issue when he was fighting the Molten Man. He wrote to him and said, it mentioned the fan by name and said, well, since he complained about the soap opera, we're gonna give him 2 full panels of just like onomatopoeia and blows. And legit, just like 2 panels of Spider-Man just socking like the Molten Man, like thok, like jab, pow, all that stuff. So just like that way that he kept interacting with like the fans, it made you feel like you were part of the process. Yeah. So Jenna says like Stan Lee is in Valhalla right now. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Even though like somebody might come in and say, well, technically he's in a grade 4, So yeah, well.
But like even because here's the thing, it's a matter of his personality, right? So it's a clash of two worlds. On the one end, he was more definitely a seller. A lot of comic book creators, even today, they're not comfortable talking about their work in public. And he was definitely one of those guys that used to always try to glamorize his comics and his characters.
And he always sold it very well. Like whenever you asked him about a character, he always like sold it in a way that let you get the essence of what the story is before you've ever read it.
Like he was Tony Stark for comics, essentially. He was definitely that guy that's like, hey, this is what I'm working on. I know you think you know comics, but it's like, hey, you're doing something that's pretty cool, pretty interesting. We have very amazing characters. And he also kind of bookend that with the rest of the editor. Is it Marvel? Is it Marvel Club? There's a name for it.
Yeah, is it the Marvelites?
The Marvelites, right? Yeah. Marvelites. Are true believers.
The true believers.
But what he would do is that he would let you know, like, kind of like lay in on the secret or tell you what's behind the curtain.
Yeah. And if you figure this out, you'll get no prize.
Yeah.
There's like all those little like taglines and things that really like got you.
And he was doing it at a time that people never considered doing it. Like this is something that is like standard fare now in 2018.
Yeah, exactly.
In the 70s and 80s and and 60s, no one was doing that stuff. They were talking down to you. They were not like bring you in and let you in on the creative process,
Yeah.
And I think that's something that influenced not only a lot of readers but definitely a lot of creators who decided to enter the medium of storytelling.
Because even now, like there's a thing that goes on in comics where like, now all the artists sell their stuff on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like they use social media to sell themselves. But it's still that thing where like artists are still not comfortable doing it.
Yeah, it's nice that.
And
trust me,
and I mean, and it's a case where even in some cases, like the companies don't sell the books properly.
Yeah.
Like there's so many books right now that Marvel has that people don't know that they have because they don't sell it. So it's up to the artists and the creators themselves to go out there and say like, well, I have to sell my stuff. Pretty much like how Stan went out there and kept telling people, yo, like the best magazine in the world.
Yeah, I can say I've never really seen any sort of advertisements or
there are many
for Marvel or DC or any of those big things. I don't see any pushing for that. I see more of Bajan artists pushing their stuff than I see.
There you go.
Than I see for those big companies pushing their material.
It's definitely on a creator basis where you gotta do things the old-fashioned way, right? You gotta find your audience, go to the cons, go to social media, find people who follow you, tell them, hey, this is what I'm working on, and then from the very development, from something from concept art stage to final product,
Correct.
you will get a timeline. And Stan was definitely one of the few people, the first few that started doing that.
Yeah.
At a time when, you know, you see a comic, you see a comic. We're actually all feel the actual creative process
Exactly. Right.
for comic books. And even like as far as like there's the Marvel way.
Yeah, the Marvel way. Yeah, like how to do things in my head.
A total how to make a comic book.
Correct.
And it was then in the 80s. I know so many creators that still have that big.
That is the line. Like whenever you go into comics and somebody asks you like, how to break into comics, they say like read Stan Lee's How to Write Comics the Marvel Way, and they always use that as a model for how they construct their characters.
And so many people came through comics or came through storytelling from that particular.
And the other thing I want to know is just like how like the books were named. Let's say it was never just like the X-Men. It was like the Uncanny X-Men. You know, it wasn't just like Spider-Man. It was the Amazing Spider-Man, the Spectacular Spider-Man. You know, the Fantastic Four, the World's Greatest Magazine. Now, all those little things, even like in the covers, like they would tell you like the story that's happening there. So whenever you saw it, you just had to like pour into it.
Yeah, it's a mixture, and I guess it's kind of like how Stan, like Marvel became a reflection of who Stan was.
Yeah.
He was a guy he didn't present himself in a grand way, but he was still very down to earth. So he presented the characters in a grand way, but when you read the actual books, you realize all these people are actually very relatable and very cool, you know.
I want to look at something from, one of your favorite guys
Who's this now?
George R. Martin.
Yeah.
So he was like, this is a thing that's been coming around a lot because George R. Martin, when he had this, same letters to the editor, he wrote this very cocky letter. Like this is like the most like cocky shit I've ever seen anyone write to a creator, and he said, "Dear Stan and Jack, Fantastic Four 17 was greater than great. Even now, I sit in awe of it, trying to do the impossible. That is, describe it. It was absolutely stupendous. The ultimate, utmost. I cannot fathom how you could fit so much action into so few pages. It will live forever as one of the greatest FF comics ever printed. Ergo, as one of the greatest of all comics. In what other comic bag could you see? Oops. See Daisy. Yeah, let me turn this up. There we go. In what other comic? Where was I? In what other comic bag could you see things like a hero falling down a manhole, a heroine mistaking a toy inventor for a criminal, and the president of the USA leaving a conference that may determine the fate of the world to put his daughter to bed? Sounds like Donald Trump. But like, wow. The epic story, spectacular and exciting as it is not at all that made this mag so great. The letter column was top notch too. See what I tell you?
Yeah.
I nearly died when I saw Pal Gambaccini's letter. You really made him change his tune. And that's another thing, like people used to really like write. And he would be like, I'll show you that you would shit, son. Not like that, but he would call you out.
Yeah.
He said that letter was a far cry from the one printed in FF number 9. Then there's the cover boast, the world's greatest comic magazine. Exactly.
Yeah.
Brilliant. You were just about the world's worst mag when you started. Backhanded compliment. But you set yourself an ideal, and by gumbo, you achieved it. More than achieved it. In fact, why? If you were only half as good as you are now, you'd still be the world's best mag. George R. R. Martin, 35 East 1st Street, Bayonne, New Jersey. So you can go check him out now and ask him when he hasn't finished his goddamn books.
What year was this written in?
This was, oh dear Lord.
That had to be like the 70s or something.
1961.
It's 61 years.
Yeah.
Interesting to see George R. R. Martin. It was like, you know, he's gonna receive it end of this stuff, you know.
And he's like,
but to see him did a few
there you go. Yo, the tables turned
Yeah.
so hard, and you don't even realize what side you're on.
And he's one of many, man.
Yeah.
I know many creators definitely came up reading Marvel books and have gone on to create masterpieces of their own. So I think that's very cool.
For sure.
I don't know if you have it pulled up also, but Stan was also a guy who was very heavy on, very socially conscious.
Very much, yeah.
Yeah.
Like he didn't have like the Stan's soapbox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he had a huge rant.
Very much. He used to have like rant, and it's so eerie because the things that he speaks about now are things that, especially now in comics, that we're having these problems with, the Comics Gate that's been coming up, and all these people like, attacking creators and complaining that there's too many black people in comics, or like diversity is not genuine, and like he kind of like said like addressed those things with that. Like he's a person who created Black Panther as a character to beat the KKK. It's just like one of those things. It's like you just look at it and it's like there you go. But it stands so boss. Like there's one that also is just one of these things that have been going around ever since his passing. It says, let's lay it right on the line. Bigotry and racism are among the deadliest social ills plaguing the world today. But unlike a team of costumed supervillains, they can't be halted with a punch in the snoot or a zap from a ray gun. The only way to destroy them is to expose them, to reveal them for the insidious evils they really are. The bigot is an unreasoning hater and one who hates blindly, fanatically, indiscriminately. If his hang-up is black men, he hates all black men. If a redhead once offended him, he hates all redhead. If some foreigner beat him to a job, he's down on all foreigners. He hates people he's never seen, people he's never known, with equal intensity, with equal venom. Now, we're not trying to say it's unreasonable for one human being to bug another, but although anyone has a right to dislike another individual, it's totally irrational, patently insane to condemn an entire race, to despise an entire nation, to vilify an entire religion. Sooner or later, we must learn to judge each other for our own merits. Sooner or later, if man is ever to be worthy of his destiny, we must fill our hearts with tolerance, for then and only then will we be truly worthy of the concept that man is created in the image of God, a God who calls us all his children. Pax Justitia Stan. And that's like something that, he wrote it, but like he made it so much of a part of his stories.
Yeah.
And
It's ridiculous how relevant that still is too, and that's not a recent statement either he made.
I think
50 years
seriously,
ago.
Yeah, so that's just ridiculous how.
ain't shit has changed.
Yeah.
But that's a part of his wisdom, Have you guys ever seen Mallrats?
I know we're talking
Like
about.
Tom Rats.
I haven't watched
No, not Tom Rats. But like
Kevin Smith, right?
the Kevin Smith movie
Yeah.
Mallrats, yeah. Like there's a moment in that film that really like sums up who he was as a character. As someone who was almost like a father to all us nerds and all us fans. There's this scene where he's talking to this character from Mallrats, Jason Lade, like Jason Lade's character, and he's just like giving him some advice, and gets him through gets him like on his toes, and so many of that is if we look at the character of Peter Parker, it's pretty much a look at not just the adversity that you face as a young guy, but also kind of like a wake up call. Be mature, like understand that life is not gonna always be there for you. It's gonna hurt you, but you gotta keep going at it. Don't slump. Don't let things get you down so much that you miss the world around you. And that's always something great I was saying.
I mean, like you were saying. I remember watching a featurette by Captain Christian. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, he did a featurette on Spider-Man, and Stan insisted on having Spider-Man be an ordinary, average school kid beneath the mask, and he felt it was very important to show how this character can actually have real world problems.
Yeah.
And still be battling with this stuff on top of fighting crime. He felt that it's extremely important to show that even ordinary people, readers who more likely read his book can be heroes too, and to actually be very real about what that would take if you were in that position.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things that makes Peter Parker still, in my opinion, one of the greatest heroes ever.
One of the things that, at a time when, heroes would have a problem, they would beat, their problem is just like they had a villain.
Yeah.
They would beat that villain of the week. They would go back home to the girl, go back home to their family, to their riches, and they were cool.
Yeah.
But like Spider-Man was the very first story, superhero story that ended with a young boy walking down the street in the dark. His uncle died.
Yeah.
And it's just like crying. That was the ending. And there's no happiness to that. It's just like, come back next time when his uncle is still dead.
Yeah.
And
He's moving forward.
it's just,
like that.
yeah. So like, you know, so Zach, kind of like geeked out over here and left you isolated. I'm very sorry about that. But what is, you know, for you, what is your favorite Stan Lee cameo?
I gotta be honest, when I started getting into Marvel movies, like the first time I started watching them, I didn't know who this man was. So,
That's something I'm going to get
so-
on, yeah.
So I only really can remember his recent cameos because I became aware of who this man was. But let me think of the recent ones. I enjoyed the one for Deadpool.
When he was
When
the
he was the
strip club
DJ.
Oh, wow, yeah, that one caught me by surprise. I wasn't.
It's the last place we think.
Yes.
But you could tell he was just having a genuinely
It
good time.
felt like that was his favorite.
It's just a
cameo.
ridiculous setup. Like old white man, and just jacked out as a DJ.
Yeah.
Old man do what old men do, pretty much. Yeah, but I can tell that was his favorite cameo for sure.
Oh, I do. I enjoy it. It's just so out there for me.
Yeah. What about you, Delvin? What was your favorite one?
I got a feeling I'm gonna steal yours for today.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So, it involves our boy.
Yeah.
Which is gonna be the Amazing Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. You mean the Spider-Man 3?
Not Spider-Man 3, Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh.
When Peter was fighting
Oh, yeah,
in the library.
The library, yes.
And Stanley was playing a librarian who basically had headphones on his ear, and Larry started playing classical music. So you know, the orchestral music started playing classical music. And Stan is basically putting away books, and behind him, Peter is fighting Lizard and this bear chaos, but he doesn't notice anything in this boss battle. I think that was one of the coolest.
That was definitely amazing. That was yeah, that was a very funny one, and it was just so well shot. Like just like didn't skip a beat.
Yeah. It
But
was a
just
panel. It was a panel from a comic book.
Yeah, he's just there packing his lunch.
Yeah.
Mine is, you know, it's obviously like the one from Spider-Man 3. When he talks to Peter, he's, you know, like one man can make a difference.
Oh yeah,
Enough said.
that was a very popular
Yeah,
one. For sure.
but the one that really made me cackle out was in Homecoming. Like when he was the
Or the neighbor.
when he was yelling at him. He's like when Peter webbed up the guy that was trying to get to his car. He's like, stop stealing cars. He's like, that's my car. He's like, oops, I'm so sorry. And then he goes, don't make me come down there, you punk.
Yeah.
And then he just like, how's the kids? You know, like that was a very funny one. I like that one.
Another one I think is really good, and I thought they were going in terms of significance, because there's a rumor or speculation that Stan Lee himself is a character in the Marvel universe in the comics, and he's supposed to be a god.
Like the Watcher. Yeah.
So the cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 at the end, where he's basically talking with, I don't know if it's at the end, but he's basically having a conversation with the Watchers, and the Watchers were like,
They don't like my feet.
you know, like he's telling them all the cameos he made. He's like, one time he was a fat
Yeah.
bill man. You know what I mean? And to me, that was
Tony Stank.
yeah, that was not only just funny, but to me, I thought they were going in that direction where they started bringing all the
Great, yeah. And he was actually like the Watcher, because all that was like such a cool cameo.
Yeah.
Because like, yo, he just made all this together. Like the
Yeah.
man is actually like running deets on this world.
correct. So I was really that one to me is my second favorite cameo.
Yeah.
Because of the significance it brings to the actual MCU and the fact that it's just funny as hell. It's
Yeah,
just-
that made me cackle out.
Like I think he's probably doing that now. Like it's already happening. He's just like
For
talking
sure.
about his crazy stories and
Telling all this stories. And that's the thing about him, you know, whenever he spoke, like every time he told something, you asked him like, what do you have for lunch? He would just tell you a story.
yeah.
You know, everything about him was that it was never just like a straight answer. It was always a tale that came with it. Yeah. As Jenna says, her favorite cameo was in Iron Man when he was mistaken as Hugh Hefner.
Hugh Hefner.
Hugh Hefner, yeah. That was a pretty good one too.
That was an honest one because like the way Stan used to always carry himself, man, he definitely
He was a
rock
playboy
star.
back in the day. He
Yeah.
did. He actually had like a nude shoot.
Oh,
Way
what?
back. Yeah, he had a nude shoot.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
well, now you know. That's why you tune into the Nerd Report.
Yeah.
To get all that info.
That's
Learn
very
about
different.
nudes. Yeah. No. Popcorns. But you know, but why was we spoke about all the things that we liked about him, but to really understand like why he's important and what he did for comics, is because you know you speak about the Fantastic Four. The whole reason for the cinematic universe was this one creation that he had. Not cinematic, but the Marvel universe. It came from the Fantastic Four, and their decision to just like bring in characters from Timely Comics and just have like this entire story where you know it's not just the Fantastic Four living in Manhattan, but you know you turn around the block and there's this guy called Daredevil, you know, and there's this other guy called Peter Parker who's Spider-Man, and this other people who live in a mansion called the X-Men, and there's so many things about the characters as well as their abilities. You know, we spoke about that already. You know, they're like every man's strength, but the abilities in themselves are almost like disabilities. They're not truly like gifts. You know, like Cyclops, like his eye beams are, you know, he has eye beams, but he can't see the world in the same way. And like Black Bolt, like I love that Black Bolt is like the story of a king whose voice is dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, then as king, like they decree, they speak, but like he has to be very careful about what he says because his words can destroy a level of city. And it's not the most poetic thing that you've ever.
The powers were always seen as a curse with Marvel, but it was like, okay, well, I have these powers. They're a problem to me, sort of, but I can use them to do the right thing.
Correct.
Whereas in comparison to most other comics, especially you know the biggest rival DC, they usually were either born with it or it was a situation where they got their powers through training. So,
Yeah, and they just got like you know, like like in the Flash, you got hit by lightning, but yeah, you can run really fast.
Can run really fast.
It's not like
it wasn't really necessarily a curse. At least not with early DC.
Yeah.
Maybe later on, but definitely not early DC. But
Yeah.
with Marvel, like you know, you had this person to help who's indestructible, but
yeah, like, I mean, in Marvel, if you got struck by lightning, you'd probably just like phase out and never be able to touch anyone again.
yeah,
That's how it works, you know.
it was a give and take.
Yeah.
Like you never got everything. You got you know these awesome things, but
Yeah.
there were always a problem you had to deal with.
Yeah.
And Fantastic Four was definitely the big proponent of that originally too because Ben Grimm, you know, was just,
Yo, the thing is like one of the most like tragic characters in Marvel, and he is really like the heart and soul of like the Marvel model, because you know he's someone who's like, you know, obviously you look at his appearance, and he's not someone that can just walk around the world and like turn his powers off like everybody else, you know, like, and really like a view, I guess, of like disability.
yeah.
Like you sometimes, you know, you can't exactly hide it, and you have to now come to terms with that you are a different person. But like Ben, you know, he comes out of that and he's still like the nicest guy ever.
Yeah,
And I
he
think
is.
like and it goes to show about that, you know, there's something about not letting the world warp you and make you just go against it.
That's crazy. I don't know what it is. Was anyone doing because Marvel handled disability very well.
They handle like a lot of their characters like you know handle disability.
Like Matt Murdock is blind.
Matt Murdock is blind, and then there's always like a give or take with their powers. You know, like even right now there's a character called Reader, and his ability is that anything he reads, he can make reality, but he's blind.
No.
So he can only read Braille, right? So that itself it shows that you know your powers are not necessarily. It's almost kind of like this mental thing that you have, almost like an anxiety or a psychosis.
Yeah. You gotta overcome a flaw to move forward.
Exactly. Like
Again,
Jenna says, in addition to the major blockbuster movies Marvel has put out, there's also a TV series, Punisher, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, beautiful done. Exactly, yes. Great stuff, despite Netflix canceling them, but it's pretty good, pretty good. Right, so I want to go into another thing because obviously, you know, Stan Day, a lot of people love Stan. They love Stan now. And going back to what Stan's, not Stan, what Zach said. But going back to what Zach said when, you know, he said he actually didn't know Stan until he actually started watching the Marvel movies. But there came a point where Stan was very much persona non grata. And just going into where, like, in some cases, his legacy is questioned. Because, you know, for everyone who's thanking him for all the characters he created, there's some fans who claim that he didn't actually create those characters. They weren't his ideas. Like, his collaborators did it. you know, whether like, you know, Steve Ditko created Doctor Strange, Stan wrote it, but it was pretty much like Steve's idea, but Steve wasn't a very good writer, so he plotted the story. He scripted the book for him. Then there was like, you know, questions as to whether Jack Kirby did more of the work on Fantastic Four. You know, all those things kind of come along. You know, it's something that happened back in 1961, so at this point, we can't exactly be sure of all the details.
But here's the thing, I think it's more a problem with the fans than the actual creators themselves. So Stan has never, from my understanding, come out and said that he alone made these characters.
Never said
He
no.
always
Never
gives
said
acknowledgement to the people he helped create comics for. So he always gives Jack Kirby his due.
No, he always says, yeah, it was when we came up with this idea and Jack did this, Jack said that, or like Steve drew this. Like he always makes sure to notify that, you know, I didn't do this all on my own.
Exactly.
You know, a lot of people credit it to him and just to him, but you know, like in a comics, the writer is not the only creator.
Exactly.
And he was very conscious of that.
I mean, when most comic books, or I'm sorry, all comic books are, well, actually most comic books are collaboration at heart. So it's like a situation, especially in the 60s. So you can't, I know, yes, a lot of people don't know about Jack Kirby, and I'm hoping that over time people will learn about Jack Kirby, because, you know, I didn't know about Jack Kirby either until I started researching, you know, a lot of the Marvel universe because of the films, because I want to know more about them. And I realized that, oh, this guy was behind a lot of cosmic universe, which was design,
because he passed away how many years ago now?
Many years ago.
Right, but
yeah,
again,
because he would not be relevant to the younger
I
fans.
think he passed away in 91, but 90s.
Even
so the younger fans would not be aware of Jack as much.
Yeah, but Jack was a beast.
Even then, his legacy would still be there, because no one is necessarily like what Stan Lee did does not take away from what Jack Kirby did, right?
It doesn't.
And I think that it's kind of laconic to sit down and say, well, you should not mourn or praise Stan because Jack Kirby did this. No, it's not a takeaway. You know, you can't take away someone's accomplishments like that. It's a collaboration. I believe in giving everyone their just credit. I'm glad that someone told me about Jack Kirby. I heard that his likeness now is the Living Tribunal. I think
He's like the Living Tribunal. Yeah.
Right, which I think is pretty cool. So
but it was actually like an issue of Fantastic Four where Ben Grimm dies, and they build a little machine that takes him to heaven. Yeah. And they spoke to Jack Kirby.
Wait, what's that? That's the one above all, right?
Right. Yeah, like so he spoke to Jack Kirby. Yeah. Right, and they were like, "We want you to bring Ben back." And then like Jack just stops him. And he says, I got a call, and he says, it's my collaborator. It's his man, like Stan. Right? So like, they literally went to the Marvel offices to speak to Jack and Stan and stuff for the magic. Yeah, that was like a pretty well story. Yeah. But like the reason why like, he started becoming such a villain to people is like, you know, near like when you got to the 80s, and people like Todd McFarlane started coming out. Yeah. Who created Venom, and people like Rob Liefeld and like Frank Miller. And like Frank Miller, like, you know, did like amazing work on Daredevil, created Elektra, Bullseye, and like took like those stories to like great, amazing heights. But then there was the question of creator rights. And as far as creator rights went, comics has always had this very weird relationship where, let's say, I sit down at home, I create a character, I want to get this character published. So I go to Marvel and I say, please publish this for me. When I do that, that character no longer belongs to me. It now belongs to Marvel. So if I leave Marvel, I can't take that character with me. It now belongs to them or whoever draws it after that.
And this is before
the royalties, but that's about it.
Yeah, you don't get royalties.
Yeah.
That's the thing, you don't get royalties.
This is before
yeah,
I thought that's how it works.
And that is why people like Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane and Frank Miller, they launched this like strong like campaign against the big publishers like DC Comics and Marvel Comics, because it was seen that the creators of Superman, Siegel and Joe Shuster, they were getting no royalties for Superman.
Oh wow!
Right?
They got shafted.
They got shafted because they sold their rights away. And then, you know, like Jack Kirby wasn't getting any royalties for Thor, for Fantastic, for Captain America. He was for Avengers. He wasn't getting those royalties. So they said, well, look, that's what Marvel does. You know, they screw Jack. So as far as everyone was concerned, you know, Marvel is a bad guy. Stan Lee is Marvel. So he's a bad guy.
Yeah. But Stanley, at the time that was happening, I don't think
He
Stanley
wasn't
top.
even the editor at the time, but it
Yeah.
also wasn't his fault. It was just how the company ran at the time. So he didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Like Jack and Stan fell out over, I think like writing credits because like Jack wanted to write. Stan told him you should stay as the artist, but he kind of did that as a way of looking out for him. Jack didn't see it that way and he left. So everyone has this idea that he shafted Jack Kirby or like he took his ideas away. But it's really just something that was spread by fan rumors because these creators had this like, very rightfully so, this battle with like the big two publishers, and that's something that changed the course of comics in a big way. Because now you have like publishers who allow creators to keep
Yeah,
the things they
it was
created.
born because of that.
Yeah, and it's a very great step. But you can't deny that Stan had a big role to play in the creation of it, and also in the course of comics today, because there's this thing called the Comics Code Authority, and it is a very bad word amongst like the comic book fans, because back in the '60s there was this professor who wrote this article called "The Seduction of the Innocent." And it was something that like alluded to the fact that comics were leading to all the social ills. They were like promoting like youths to behave all violently, and it pointed to like violent instances in comics. All these like, because back then comics were like grim as shit. You used to write like murder mysteries, serial killer stories. So they kind of had to change, and everything had to be squeaky clean. So now it had to be like Aquaman flying on flying fish. Superman like trying to find the perfect gift for Lois Lane. Superman trying to get married to Lois Lane, creating a little robot.
This is back to when like they're trying to argue that comics are definitely for kids.
Yeah, and it's for kids, so like it should just be very squeaky clean. And Stan was the first man, like he was a person who was very much fighting for the rights of for comic book artists to be taken as a serious little art form. And he broke the Comics Code Authority through Spider-Man. There was an issue of Spider-Man where like Harry Osborn started abusing drugs. And there was a kid also like in that same issue, he rescued a kid from falling off a building because the kid was high. He just went to the building and he jumped off. But like they got sued for that because you guys are not supposed to talk about drugs. You're supposed to mention murder. It's supposed to be very squeaky clean. And Stan made the case that this is a literary art form and we should be able to tackle
I mean, it's real world issues. Like you should put it out there. It's not like you're going to do that every issue, obviously.
Exactly.
But there will be plots that you could write around it, and you don't focus on the negative. You try to focus on what positives can come out of it.
For sure.
It's how it should be in any media, really.
And when you mention the legacy of Stanley, you have to keep that in mind and notice that the comics that we have today, and I'm not saying nobody else would have challenged that if he hadn't, but he was the one to step up and do that, and he was the one to really affect a change that led to some of the greatest stories of all time. Like we couldn't have gotten the death of Gwen Stacy if not for that, and it's like really something that marked a change in comics. And again, like, he didn't write the death of Gwen Stacy, but
he
led
that fight.
You're right.
Repercussions, because like obviously even within Marvel itself, it's like Tony Stark's alcohol abuse.
Exactly.
Like Pym's like
That, yeah.
like,
Demon in the Bottle.
Yeah,
Great story. It's like a
Right.
superhero who's drunk and can't fight crime because he's so addicted to alcohol.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Or like the Hulk is superhero who's not good because his anger like clouds all that is good about him.
Yeah, or even like Hank Pym, like
Hank Pym is a mixed bag of mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's Stan. Any last things you want to say?
I am glad that his suffering, his whatever suffering that he would have had on Earth is over. He definitely lived life well. He had a life well lived. I remember when I was younger, I used to resent, because this is back when I wanted to be totally original. And it was I first discovered that every single ability within Marvel at the time had a scientific basis, right? I know Stanley was one of the guys who was like, yeah, it's gonna have some sort of science behind every
Yeah.
power. And at the time, I didn't even know that, right? So when I was, this is like primary school, I was like 8 at the time, and it's like coming out all these different heroes and abilities. And then I actually did research, because I didn't have much, there was no internet back then, right? You only got research from like, if you just stumbled upon a comic and
Pretty much,
read
yeah.
the fine print and see what the guy was about. And it was just like every single cool idea. And this is
He just had them all,
this
and
is
they
the
were all
90s.
done, yes.
This is the 90s, right? So literally in the 90s, we were trying to come up with any cool original
Everything was-
idea,
everything was
especially around
good.
science. He came with that right. And I was like so pissed. I was like, Danny Stanley already has. Because before I didn't know that I had other writers, so I was trying every Stanley. And I was like, damn, this man came with everything. It's vast, right? But then as I got older and began to understand like the nuances of writing and how he carried himself, I began to appreciate what he had to offer more as a medium. Again, the whole thing with speaking to your audience and speaking to your fan base and having like that whole, down to earth relationship. That's not to be underestimated. Like
For
a
sure.
lot of my favorite creators today do that, especially with manga. Like a lot of manga authors, I don't know if they Japan got this from reading stuff in America. I don't know if they got it from there, but that whole thing where they're like, hey, this is character, this is my original concept design, this is what I had in mind, yada yada yada. I don't know if they got that from Stanley, but I have to believe that being one of the first people to do that sort of stuff changed the medium of comics forever.
For sure. I mean, well, Spider-Man was definitely something that touched everybody around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his legacy cannot be understated.
Yeah.
He definitely is goals for any creator.
For sure.
No matter what level they're at, everyone looked at Stanley, everyone knew Stanley was, and was like, wow, this guy stood by his beliefs in doing something that he loved, not something that necessarily paid well, and stuck with it at an age where a lot of people probably wouldn't stop. He grew up in his 40s, right, or late 30s.
Late 30s, yeah.
Yeah, so, props for doing that. I'm definitely inspired.
But we still got time.
Yeah.
We got time to get there.
So Zach, anything you'd like to say?
I mean, with any death, there's always going to be negativity that arises. This happens with any celebrity. So it's just, you have to ignore those people. Bill Maher, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
Bill Maher was a piece of shit, dude, and it was like long before.
I didn't even bother to read the article.
I read the article. I saw it last
I know
night.
he does. He says shit for attention. I don't know that.
Yeah, well, you just got to not pay attention to that. And, although he didn't affect my life nearly as much as yours, because I'm only the recent Marvel fan, you still have appreciation for the stories that he has now put in place, and they're going to last for generations after he's gone.
For sure. Yeah. Well, for me, Stan, so many Spider-Man stories, Because Spider-Man was my main source of getting to know who Stan was as a writer. And I always say, like, the final chapter, and like, it's a story where, Peter, like, it really felt like it was the end of a Spider-Man story. Is when Peter is, like so close to death, with, like, tons of steel, like, crumbled on his back. He's caught in an underwater base, the water is rising, he's about to drown, and he has to get out to bring some medicine for his aunt. And it's really all the failures, all the things that he feared, all his failures are just combined and crushing on him, much like those steel beams that are just on his back right at that moment. And it's one of the most like inspiring moments in comics where he just like pushes and pushes and pushes and like lifts that weight, that burden right off his back. And you saw it in the Spider-Man Homecoming. They did like a very short tribute to that when he was fighting the Vulture, and like the building collapsed over him. And he was like, "Come on, Spider-Man! Come on, Spider-Man!" Like that was a moment to that, the final chapter. And that, like, for me, like I read that at a very tough time, and it really like picked me up. Like it did a lot for me, like to just like see that strength and determination. It was like, you know what? I can lift this burden off me. I can fight through this. And that, for me, like, always touched me, always remember that. And so, Stan, thanks for everything. And one last hurrah, Excelsior!
Excelsior!
And before we, our last topic that we'll talk today is a very long episode already. But, I did kind of sideline Zach for this one. But this is yours now. So the trailer for Detective Pikachu.
Which also dropped on Monday, the same day as Stanley's passing.
Yeah,
It would have been the biggest thing on the internet.
yeah, that well, Toy Story tried it, but
Oh yeah.
come on, son.
I forgot
Come
about
on,
that.
son.
Yeah, they dropped a teaser trailer, which was basically, oh, here's a new character.
Yeah, it's like a sport.
A sport.
Fuck off.
I mean,
we'll wait and see.
So we gotta see because Toy Story then dropped another teaser trailer the day after. It's like,
This is worse.
Yeah,
oh, did you know Toy Story 4 is
It's
coming?
like, oh yo, did you know we dropped a teaser yesterday? Like, no one did.
No,
No one paid attention.
the round-eared mouse did not want to get outshone by the yellow mouse. But I knew the movies would come in for a while. I knew Ryan Reynolds was voicing it. I just like we hadn't got much information besides it was coming out in 2019.
Like Ryan Reynolds is just everywhere right now.
I mean,
And he's making the right moves.
Yeah, so
Like I never would imagine him as Pikachu.
yeah, Ryan Reynolds was the one who dropped the trailer first, actually, because of course it's Ryan Reynolds. His Twitter is hilarious. But I saw it as soon as it dropped. I just happened to actually open Twitter, and the news site I follow for Pokemon, they retweeted Ryan Reynolds' tweet. So I was just like, is this? And I opened the trailer. I was like, oh dear, oh no, here it comes. But then I watched it. I was just like blown away. Just like because the hyper realistic Pokemon, the style they went with was. I was so glad they did. I was kind of expecting the if you've seen the Pokemon Go trailers,
Yeah.
or like when they introduced.
Yeah,
well, that's what I was expecting to see.
Exactly, I felt
Oh, they look great.
Yeah, just like, but I know the CG, and it didn't feel like it was like an organic part of the world.
Yeah.
It felt pretty much like it was just something that was kind of tacked on, pasted on it.
Yeah.
But the art style of this, like from the Pokemon, Detective Pikachu, the Pokemon, this looks so realistic.
Yeah.
Like you can see the details in their skin, like the furs and
Yeah.
the scales.
Yeah.
Like Charizard's model looks great. It's scaly. You see the wrinkles
Yeah.
in the scale.
And it's like it makes sense because you see Charizard is drawn like so smooth.
Yeah.
So I was like, he is a
It's a
lizard
reptile,
though. He
yeah,
will
yeah,
have
yeah.
warts and scales and all that. That does make sense.
But here's the thing with it, because I'm a huge Pokemon fan. I was a huge Pokemon fan back in the day. So I was happy to see how the Pokemon came out and reference to training and gyms and battles and whatnot. That's Pokemon I'm used to. But then when I saw the trailer, I saw this like, okay, they have that, but then there's like this Zootopia type setup where everybody's walking around and
Yeah.
hanging around with humans.
It's kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yes. I was just like, wow, okay, so
Yes.
yeah, so
Yes.
I'm kind of like I was confused. I'm not familiar with the Pikachu. I'm familiar with Pokemon, so I'm like, okay,
Mm.
Detective
I'm
Pikachu
covering.
is based on the game of the same name,
Uh-huh.
which came out originally only in Japan as the first part back in 2015, I believe, or 16 on
Was
the
that
3DS.
was it a manga as well?
No.
No.
Okay.
Just a,
Detective Pikachu's original game.
oh.
Okay.
So
So what's the premise of that? Is that
it's just so far I played it because it came out in English last year,
Uh-huh.
the full game on the 3DS as well. I think around the same time that they mentioned that they're making the movie, so it was a wise move for them to bring that out fully. But it's basically the same. It's very simplified detective game. Like you just have to talk to Pokemon, right through Pikachu, because Pikachu translates obviously. Because you solve day-to-day crimes, but the main story is that Tim's looking for his father, like in the Pikachu trailer. So that's the similarity to the cat. I don't think they're going to keep anything else, from what I can tell. So
Because it looks like they're trying to kill a couple of birds with one stone. So it started. This is my speculation because the way it looks and the way it presents itself is definitely in the Pokemon world that we know.
yes,
But they're doing it in such a funny, relatable way that if this works, I can see a lot of spin-off movies coming off of it that
Mhm.
follow the kind of traditional
Yeah.
Pokemon storyline.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite glad they did not go. They went to Detective Pikachu as opposed to the tired, same old, going through the gyms and everything. Because good Lord, they've been done to death at this point. Because there are so many variations of the manga. There's one that's
Yeah.
continued, but there's so many other variations. And then of course you've done the games. I'm glad they went with the Detective Pikachu story, and then they're making their own original story from that.
So we have like the story. The premise is like Pokemon universe. Tim Goodman, who was played by Justice Smith from The Get Down.
Yeah.
So he's a failed Pokemon trainer and the son of prominent detective Harry Goodman. When his father disappears in a car crash, Tim arrives in Rhyme City and ends up meeting Detective Pikachu, who was Harry's former Pokemon partner. Tim is somehow able to understand the detective, and they reluctantly team up to find Harry and uncover the mystery surrounding his disappearance.
Okay.
So we have like Ken Watanabe is gonna be in this one,
Yeah.
and
That was a very cool quote.
that is Who? What's that?
Well, no, where he
Oh.
said that you want to be a trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Because it shows us in the world of Pokemon because they have a poster in this room for Sinnoh, and Sinnoh is where the 4th generation games took place.
Yeah.
So you know that it's in the same universe.
And little stuff like that, and even like there's a scene that's very epic with a big tail wheel thing.
Oh
And I'm hoping that
yeah.
you see legendary Pokemon at least mentioned
For sure.
in this movie.
I would not doubt it. If they go by the game, it will be Mewtwo.
Oh, nice.
So, but if they don't, we might get somebody else.
Lugia or Entei
Yeah.
or any of those.
Something like that, yes. But we do have like a little like the competition that is being done where Legendary and Warner they want artists to do their fan art.
Oh right, yes.
And
yes.
it's with Art Collaboration Hub Talent House, and it's for an art activation campaign contest, with 5 artists' works being selected and a $2,000 US in winnings for each of the 5 artists. So
Speaking of artists, actually,
so you should join that. We'll let us see some Bajans in that
yeah,
category.
I
There.
can't jump for shit. So let's get some artists out there doing
If
it.
Tristan is watching this, then that's like.
Yeah, we'll be posting this link on the link on the site, so you can create your artwork for Pokemon Detective Pikachu. There was a guy who's did a fan art, and the concept for his art is what was used in this movie.
He helped design. He's part of it. He's part of the team that helped design the hyper realistic Pokemon.
Shoot.
And he started it off in DeviantArt, just drawing these hyper realistic Pokemon. He works at Ubisoft as well. So they so Nintendo actually or whoever's searched him out to work on this movie. So
Yeah.
you never know, DeviantArt fans, you could be like this dude.
Yeah, this is exactly why you should always credit artists
Yeah.
for the art that you share and the art that you post that is not your own. You should always credit it,
Definitely.
because that's how people get jobs, yo. That's how people get become a part of these like big production and get their break. So, that's how you can support artists.
But
Always
I
credit
was
their
so
work.
happy with all the details that they went into the trailers. Like I watched the trailer about 10 times. I watched the breakdown of the whole trailer because I was glad it was not only Gen 1 Pokemon, because Gen 1 pandering is a bit much for
Hey,
me.
Gen 1 is the Gen.
Not to me.
Gen
That's
1
another
is the
discussion. But yeah, through all 7 generations, they have at least one representative in the trailer because you can see them.
Yeah, you
I
can
missed a
see-
lot on the first watch.
Yeah, you can see
go
like
back.
a Greninja, another
Ninjas
Jigglypuff.
from Gen 6.
Jigglypuff was a bit creepy though. That looked dark.
Yeah.
It looked like
That's what happened confused.
That's,
Yo.
it references what she does in the anime. She sings, people fall asleep, she gets mad. It was a perfect reference to that.
Yeah, and there was so many different references as well to like like Mr. Mime, like
Yeah.
because he was miming and then when he jumped he has like the light screen.
Yeah.
To say, hey. Or is it
Sorry.
reflect because he did try to tackle. I see.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the Jigglypuff theme like just looked dark.
Yeah, it does.
I just hope that manga
And to the
also.
people who are out there who want no fur on Jigglypuff, would you prefer a latex Jigglypuff? What do you think that thing on his head
latex
was?
Jigglypuff.
Like
What do you mean?
like latex type thing. Instead of having fur, they just wanted some skin.
Oh, skin like
Just
oh,
imagine
yeah.
if that thing on his head
just.
just smacking against her while she walks. It's like a scrotum on her head if it was skin.
But I kind of figure it would depend on their like species type, So
Because
like
I can't imagine Arcanine not Arcanine. Is his last name Arcanine? No, Arcanine. I
Arcanine,
can't remember
yeah.
Arcanine.
he's a
He's a
dog.
dog.
He's
Yeah, he's
a
a dog. He's a
He's a furry dog. So I don't know. I don't. Yeah, it kind of depends because they're still animals. So like if they're a horse, they would have the appropriate texture.
I hope we see a Blastoise. Blastoise is a big boy.
I want to see the Squirtle Squad.
There's actually a Squirtle Squad in the trailers. There's a bunch of trainers dressed like Squirtle Squad.
Yeah, don't want to say like Jesus and Meryl should play the Squirtle Squad. Yo, like, yo, fast guy
I
from New
mean-
York. Yo.
I haven't seen Justice Smith in anything except for Jurassic World, and he just annoyed the hell out
Have you
of
seen
me.
the Get Down?
I have not.
It's
I've
amazing,
never seen
yeah.
it.
That's where you haven't
Is he
seen the
actually
Get Down?
better?
He has a long range, yeah.
Okay. 'cause
That's pretty much where he got
Jurassic
he
World-
got his break.
Yeah,
was
they
on-
didn't buy Jurassic World. I like him Jurassic World.
he annoyed the fuck out
Like,
of me now.
he's
But his character was just kind of like a throwaway character.
Yeah,
too,
but
so.
in the Get Down, he's very
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
sympathetic and
Because-
Yeah.
smart. And,
He has like layers in it.
Yeah.
Because I was,
That was such a good show, man. Why did it
I'll
happen?
have
I'm
to watch.
salty they canceled it.
I mean-
so salty.
and then of course Ryan Reynolds, we're all familiar with Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool.
Yeah,
So-
but the voice with Pikachu.
Well, if you heard Detective Pikachu game, they have even deeper voice actors for the games, especially the Japanese voice actor. It's like something on like if you're familiar with Bleach, like Yamamoto type of deep.
Word.
Yeah.
He's like serious.
But that's a welcome change because there was a movie that came out recently with Pikachu where there's a woman's voicing him, and it freaked everyone out because he's talking to Ash.
Yeah.
And
he
he
says,
says,
he
"Woman
says,
is
a
voice."
sentence-
I was
he
like,
says a
ah.
sentence in English.
Yeah, and everybody's
Yeah,
like,
I still have to
"What?"
watch that movie. Yeah.
I still remember that video when all the fans just like lost their shit.
Yeah.
In the
I was
theater.
like, yo, that was. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't mean to laugh at your pain, but that was just hilarious.
Off, yeah. it was
No,
off.
I'll get around to that movie, but I just say it's a very. There was no explanation for it. Just the bond. That's some bullshit.
But the potential for this movie is very big. This may be the first
What-
good video game.
Yeah, this might break the
I
curse.
think it might
I
break.
just
I have
hope-
high hopes.
I just
I'm not
hope it
just being
goes-
biased.
Yeah, no, well,
I
you
know.
are, but I just really hope that it gets there, and it will be releasing on May 10th, 2019.
Yeah.
And so if we're all
I'll
live
be
by
watching
then.
it 3 times a day.
That's
so
a
I can
confident. That's a
guarantee you
confident.
that.
That's a very confident release date. It's release date.
Yeah, it's the week after Avengers.
Yeah, that's I mean that's ballsy.
I'm very
I
confident.
expect this to maybe move down, or to be honest, Avengers may change its release date, but I guess they're probably hoping for one to budge. But yeah, when that comes out, we will be reviewing that for you. We will
Definitely.
be letting you know what's up because we are the show, True Believers. So thank you for joining us, everyone who checked on the live stream. Thank you for all the people who responded to my interviews and my request to have their Stanley tributes aired on our audio, which you will hear shortly after this. Expect that to be out on either Monday or Tuesday. I got assignments to do, fam. But it's been great to see you guys again. So everyone sign off. Where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, on this Instagram, and on Facebook on the Delvin Sin channel. Also check out my comic book Offset and Beyond Publishing Caribbean if you get a chance.
Yeah.
And you can find me at Senior Ludi Loco on Facebook, and that's Ludi Loco, Ludiloco, and Sir Ludi Loco on Instagram, as well as Zach Stab if you want to see my cats. This is my personal Instagram. I post my cats a lot.
For disclosure.
Yeah, there's no innuendo. But I am, your host Sway, the Rubik's Cube in the Cuban Missile Crisis, Lord Nerd of House Nerd, King of the Andalites, and the first memes, the man of the hour with the Black Panther power. And I must say, you guys, thank you everyone for your responses. Thank you for Jenna, and thank you to Alex for giving us the space today to record. As always, great man, great man. This is a home gym. This is a gym. We kind of work out here sometimes.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, we're gonna work out here right now. Are we?
Maybe.
Maybe. We'll see.
I still have a headache.
Well, until next time, same nerd time, same nerd channel.
Peace.
Peace. I know someone else will go over there later.
Where is